I'd like to begin my talk by telling two stories. The first story I want to tell is about Zhuge Liang, who was a famous military strategist during the Three Kingdoms period of Chinese history. So this particular boy, Zhuge Liang, when he was young, he really loved studying. Every day he would go to school and he just wants to hear his teacher teach him more and more of the knowledge that he had. Unfortunately, every day at about midday, the pet rooster of the teacher would crow, and like a bell, it would signal that classes were over for the day. Teacher still has to have lunch. But Zhuge Liang was not satisfied by this. He wanted to actually learn as much as he could from his teacher. And so this is what he did. He brought a bag of rice with him to school, and every day at around midday, he would feed the rooster rice. And as long as the rooster was eating rice, it couldn't crow, so he could actually prolong the lessons for as long as he could have rice in his hands. Unfortunately, of course, he was found out, and the teacher was about to expel him from school because he had deceived his teacher after all. Not acceptable in this kind of society that he was living in. Until the teacher's wife told him that the only reason why he did this was because he loved learning so much. So this story has a very strong and poignant impact on me as an individual when I read it for the first time in a comic book when I was young. Because it gave me this strong intuition and belief that no individual who seeks knowledge should be denied the opportunity to actually access knowledge. Which leads me to my second story. And this story came out in the Straits Times some time ago when they announced that academic tracking in Singapore was going to be abolished in favor of subject-based banding, which would be a more flexible system of teaching people of allowing people to take subjects that they wanted. It was written by this Straits Times journalist. Her name was Tiffany Fumiko Tay, and she used to be a normal academic student in a Singapore secondary school. Now, I know that not everyone here is a Singaporean, and indeed, TED Talks tend to be watched by people from all around the world, so you may not know what normal academic means. While the term has the word normal in it and suggests that it's something that a lot of Singaporeans, average Singaporeans, go through, at the same time, Singapore society does not see normal academic stream, or indeed any of the other streams, as normal. Because many of the students who go in this stream, they tend to be associated with academic underachievement, and they thus face stigmatization from society. So Tiffany Fumiko Tay was one of these students, and she loved literature a lot. She wanted to study the works of Shakespeare because if you're a literature student, of course you want to read the words of the bard. But she was not allowed to, because in Singapore's education system, the type of skills and the type of knowledge that you're taught is based on what the system expects you to achieve. Because she was in normal academic stream, she was instead given text, which she says in her own words, were thin text with large fonts, suggesting that this was the maximum level with which she could achieve in terms of learning. I mentioned in my first story that I believe that no individual who seeks knowledge should be turned away from learning. Because our education system was so rigid in its ways, a student was actually prevented from learning what she wanted to learn. Fortunately, things are starting to improve slightly because we have subject-based banding now. Slowly, we are moving perhaps towards having a society where we allow for greater flexibility for students to choose what they want to learn. But still, we have to interrogate that fundamental principle that animates some of these older policies. The idea that there are fixed paths of learning and there are fixed hierarchy of skills, that academic skills are somehow more valuable than vocational skills, that STEM is somehow more valuable than humanities, and that academic skills are more important than vocational skills. Basically, is this hierarchy there. But we're living in a world right now where slowly we're moving away from that sort of model. As the industry around us shifts from Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0, we're moving towards a world where we can no longer believe in a hierarchy of skills, or that there's a single compartment or pathway with which we pursue to develop our skills. We need to have a wide variety of skills. We must be willing to adapt ourselves based on how the economy develops and what sort of skills are needed from us as automation forces us to move up the value chain. Additionally, in our education system, very much of our learning takes place within schools. We spend almost all our time either in school studying itself, doing school-based co-curricular activities, or otherwise going for tuition outside just to prepare for school. We forget that school is not the sum total of the world or the sum total of our experiences. There's a whole world out there with opportunities which we can take, but yet we have no time to do so because we spend all our time studying just to get into an academic stream, a place on the academic hierarchy with maximum social cultural capital and minimal social cultural stigma. This is the state of our education system, and I don't think that it is ready for Industry 4.0, where the world moves so fast that a rigid system just cannot cope. So how do I propose to actually solve this problem? I hope to solve this problem through this idea of campus city. The notion of a campus city is the belief that the campus should be in the city and the city should be your campus. This is different from the concept of a university town. In a university town, while the university and the town exist side by side together, there's a tangible division between them. But in a campus city, this division doesn't exist at all. You go into the city, you learn from the city, you take advantage of the opportunities there to enrich yourself. This is the belief that it's time to break down the silos that have kept knowledge in certain places, that keep people from learning certain skills, and allow for free exchange of information between individuals living in our society. So let's interrogate the individual terms that constitute this concept. Firstly, the idea of campus. I believe that the idea of campus is that notion that there should be free exchange of knowledge. There should be no hierarchy of skills, but a plurality of skills, where individuals can learn different things without facing social stigma or any form of societal sanction. I came to this belief when I studied at NUS College across the road over there. At NUS, we follow a curriculum known as the liberal arts curriculum, where there is no such hierarchy of skills. At least for those skills that are being taught in the school, there is no such belief that one subject is any better than the other. As a result of that, people have taken hard science subjects, social science subjects, and humanities subjects all together to create a very holistic curriculum. I've had friends who've gone in thinking that they were going to major in literature, but they come out majoring in physics instead. Indeed, when you put these skills together, you come up with concepts and ideas that are far more interesting than if you stick to disciplinary silos alone. I know of a friend. He was an arts and humanities major, and he similarly had a set of critiques about the education system as well. He used anthropological research papers to inform the creation of an art project that allows individuals to themselves experience a microcosm of what this education system is like. This is the potential that you have for society to create new ideas and new innovative synthesis of existing knowledge that will bring our society forward in a world where innovation is increasingly prized. But unfortunately, liberal arts is still very much associated with elite education. Unfortunately, we have locked away this freedom of learning in the 3 ivory towers across the road from here. And this shouldn't be the case, because in Industry 4.0, we need this sort of attitude to come out to the public. And here is where I come to the concept of city. Some time ago, I was on exchange in London, where I was able to experience for myself the ability to synergize my learning with a wider global city around me. I'm a history student, and so while I was taking lectures in the university about history courses, etc., the normal stuff, I was also able to go out into the city and experience for myself the research opportunities that were there. I visited the British Library and the British Museum, which probably have the largest collections of books and artifacts in which I could actually experience working the historian's craft. I could go also to the public lectures that were held at many of the research institutes throughout the city and connect my learning with the cutting-edge research that these individuals pursued. So basically, what I was hoping to see here in Singapore, which is similarly a global city, which similarly has a strong startup scene, a strong artistic culture that's slowly emerging very strongly, is to see the learning that we have in schools go out into the city and make it more relevant to the world in which we live in. This is the idea of campus city, where you take free exchange of knowledge and cite it in the city to make it more relevant to the world in which we live. But let's stop talking in abstractions. Let's start talking about how an individual would truly experience Campus City if it indeed came into reality. Let's see this system through the eyes of a student called Leslie. Leslie wants to be a metal sculptor. She wants to make sculptures out of metal. Under our current educational system, she has to choose a certain pathway and follow the curriculum set out in that pathway and try and learn the other skills associated with metal sculpting aside from her academic studies. But in Campus City, the first thing that is there is that there is no fixed silos of learning, no fixed institutions or schools in which you belong to. But instead, you see the fact that you can actually have free ability to attend a multiplicity of educational institutions and learn a wide range of skills that each of these institutions provides. Here's what it looked like for someone like Leslie. Aside from learning artistic theory at an arts college like, say, LaSalle College of the Arts or NAFA, for instance, she also gets to go to polytechnics and learn about material science so that she understands the properties of metals itself, so she knows what can or cannot be done with this particular material. On top of that, she also needs to learn how to actually manipulate this metal into the shape that she so desires. So she will also be able to go ITE as well and learn things like metalworking and welding. So we see in this world that there should be no strict division between different types of knowledge, different types of people, and different types of skills. We can see engineers going to junior college, for instance, trying to learn literature to mix it in with their own technical knowledge. We can see welders go into JCs as well and learn history as well, and even the other way around. Basically, you see the entire system meshing together. The hierarchy of skills is undermined and it becomes a plurality. You take the skills you need, you make it as you see fit to create a curriculum that best speaks to your individual needs. But more than that, having such a system where the shift is towards learning skills becomes something that allows you to draw on the opportunities of the wider city of Singapore itself. Right now, while we're having a hierarchy of skills, very often people tend to find that they have to actually spend most of their time studying in order to chase that last great point, in order to reach a particular stream in the system that will allow them to secure their social position in society. But this changes once you break down that hierarchy of skills and these silos of different places of knowledge. No longer do individuals have to chase that last point in order to score well in an exam to get into a particular school, institution, or track. Instead, the calculus changes towards skills mastery, where you go to school to actually pick up the theoretical skills and then later take them out into the world out there and apply them tangibly. This is a bit like the Skills Future program that has been instituted by the government lately, trying to institute people to try and get people to actually learn about how to reskill and get skill mastery over time. Unfortunately, our school system has yet to imbibe the sort of attitudes that this Skills Future retraining system is implementing. So what we're doing now is that we're starting them young and trying to get this attitude in even from school starting. So basically, when you do that, you find that you have a lot of time on your hands, because the time used to actually go for tuition in the past, the time that you used to mug for that last point in examinations, suddenly transitions to a time that you can use to pursue the opportunities of the city of Singapore around you. Leslie does not need to focus so much on trying to hit that last point in studying for examinations. Instead, Leslie can use her time to go and volunteer at an art gallery. She can use her time to go and work with some of the up-and-coming artists in Singapore's art scene. She can use her time to produce her own sculptures. And this will allow for a more relevant education for her that speaks to the needs of wider society. But the question that many will ask will then be, if there are no examinations, or if examinations do not have the same sort of store of focus that they currently have in the Singapore education system, then how are we going to assess the ability of individual students? I put it to you that Campus City allows for means of assessing people in a way that is far more relevant than any 3-hour examination ever could. Because basically, instead of judging people by how well they do on their examinations, the philosophical shift here is that you now try and assess an individual based on what they do in their spare time, the places that they have volunteered, the projects they have undertaken, the work experiences they have pursued. These things provide a far more accurate assessment of an individual's merit than any 3-hour examination ever could. And this, I argue, has created, therefore, not only a more relevant way of educating people in Singapore, but also a more relevant way of assessing people and implementing a meritocratic society. Now, I can tell what many of you may be thinking. Many of you may be thinking that what I'm saying is painfully idealistic, even dangerously so. It runs against our Singaporean nature indeed to even think of such a thing, because we are pragmatists. We must take the safe option. We must take the tried and tested. But I want to put it to you that our world is moving so quickly and changing so drastically that in a disrupted world, pragmatism is the highest form of idealism, and idealism is the highest form of pragmatism. If we rest on our laurels, if we do not let our education system keep up with the changing forces that are now pervading our world, we shall find that these social forces will outrun us, and our international competitors will outpace us. In fact, now look at Estonia. They're even developing a society where they're focusing on developing internet skills for the entire society as a whole. Can we really afford to let them run past us? We cannot. So I hope that my talk today has helped you decide to actually perhaps reset your minds and introduce perhaps a little bit of idealism into your considerations of what the education system should be like. We need to start thinking about how we can transform our education system now in order to be able to successfully ensure that we are ready for a future where disruption will become the defining feature of our society. Thank you.